You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. This episode is sponsored by Nello Effect, a coaching and consulting service that helps people turn mindfulness into action as they navigate the dating world as well as their relationships. Follow on Instagram at nello.effect and find more information in the episode description. In this episode, we talk about when guys start looking for marriage in a relationship, how big of a step it is to live with someone, and key considerations if doing it before marriage, why it's necessary to have tough conversations with people in a respectful way, the importance of having positive dating experiences even if the relationship doesn't work out, and why I hate the term dating. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm back with Nkem. He's graciously giving us some of his time. Thanks for being back, Nkem.
I got all the time, baby.
I appreciate it. We'll see that until your wife texts you. That's all my married friends say, man. It's like either talk to the boss or my wife I'm free till my wife hit me up.
That is the boss. You got to talk to the boss lady.
So getting back into more of the dating kind of mindset when you're, think back 5 years ago, when you were out, this is like your mid-20s and your later 20s. Like, how were you thinking about, relationship, and what did that mean to you? Was it? And I say that to say that, like, now, me being single, I'm 36. Oftentimes when I'm talking to someone and like things are going well, they're ready to jump into like, let's be in a relationship. And I always say like, hey, I'm not in this. I'm not like engaging with you to find my next girlfriend. I'm trying to see who's going to be my wife. And so there's more that I'm looking to see, because my end point of this is not to say that we made it into a relationship. And so I asked, like, when you were, in your mid-20s and stuff like that, how were you thinking about like being in a relationship?
Yeah, I don't think that I was actually looking specifically for a life partner or a wife until probably after business school, if I'm being 100% honest. When, obviously in college, you're just dating or whatever, so you're not really looking for those qualities. You're just trying to figure out who you are at the same as figuring out who all these other people are and trying to graduate from, college. So that was that. Post-college, your first time making money, your first time hitting the scene, first time, being, I guess, that guy or whatever. I had a decent salary and all that, so that was pretty cool there. But really, as far as dating and all of that, I was not trying to get married. In my head, I think we all had this age or whatever. My ideal time or age that I would get married was 28, right? So if I'm 23 at the time, I'm like, hey, I got 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's get it in for 5 years.
And then what happens when you're 27? I got 5 years.
Right. And we'll get to that. So for me, I'm just trying to live life and have experiences and, just have fun, right? And then going to business school, same deal. It was more so, I'm in school and I'm just trying to have some fun right now, to be honest. So all of those stages in life, I wasn't looking for a wife. What actually just really hit me is, like I was saying before, when I got tired and when I was like, you know what?
The streets retired you.
The streets retired me, man. Honestly, and as you can pick up before, I'm a decently logical person. I started to realize that I was just spending a lot of time. I was spending a lot of time dating, a lot of money dating, a lot of time managing and flipping between all these different people that I'm talking to and all of that. That to me, I don't think that it was worth the opportunity cost. I could be focusing on things like entrepreneurship or reading or working out and everything like that. I just felt like, I don't know if you've ever been through this, when you get out of a relationship or an interaction and you figure out that you have so much more time to,
for sure,
to just develop yourself and to work on yourself, because you were devoting so much time to this relationship before. I just felt like I was doing a lot of that it was a lot of starting and stopping and all of that. To me, it wasn't efficient, so that's why I wasn't looking for it.
It's interesting you said that because I said sure, but in my head I was like, well, I don't really stop that. I think I tell people that I've talked to that I'm probably harder to date in the beginning than as we make progress, because I think those things are important.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people feel, meet someone that things are going well and they get excited and it's like, I got to throw myself all into this. And, I was getting feedback from a friend on a situation that happened, and they were like, Chidozie, this is always going to be you. Like, you're going to be a social person. You can't have someone that you can't bring to an event and they can't hold their own, and they got to be with you everywhere you go. You can't have someone that's going to be like bored and need you to be around them all the time in general, because you always are going to have stuff going on. And so for me, that's always been important to like lay that truth and foundation out early. So like, hey, you could opt out early, because that's not going to, especially when you don't know, like that person's not vested in the relationship. So like, why am I making certain sacrifices so early when you could easily, one bad day to 4, you're like, well, I won't talk to him no more. And it's like, well, I spent all this time, to your point, opportunity cost that I could have been working on some other stuff that I just wasted. And so I definitely get what you mean from opportunity cost, but I think more people should be to maintain that perspective and hold on to like the things that are making them and keeping them happy while they're dating, because you don't want to lose yourself in the relationship because you're just so excited about it. You just want to spend so much time with that person.
Mm-hmm. And because I know you, I know that's how you operate. That if a woman is going to be with you, you have to know that, hey, I got my standards, that you got your standards, and you got what you got going on in your life, and you're going to accommodate for it, but you have to know that this is how you operate, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a tenet of yourself, right? I think for me, I have a hard time balancing a lot of that. Like I'm a very like focused person. So if I'm focused on one thing, I'm going to be focused on that. So sometimes when I'm in a relationship, I might sacrifice stuff like, hey, this is my workout schedule and all of that. Today, though, I have that not down pat, but I do pretty well with that.
No, I totally agree with you. I think I'm very similar in a relationship. It is the building up to one, because to me, when it's serious, I understand the priority is not my stuff. It's that person, then my stuff. And so what I'm willing to push back, to do later, what I'm willing to stay up, longer for, or put on the back burner, is always going to be those things before the person. When I know, like, hey, this is what we're building towards, this is what I want. There's an end goal of what I want with that person. Prior to that, when you're still trying to figure it out, I'm not willing to. And so, like, to your point, I'm willing to take L's on some of the side stuff and all that for my person, because that's always going to be the primary goal, that relationship. But when you're not there yet, or you don't know where you want it to be, it's like, do I really want to like push back the podcast another month because I'm spending time with this person? With that may say like, after 3 weeks, I'm over this. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. But to your point, if I was in a serious relationship and the podcast was coming into, causing issues because of time, this would be first to get cut, Right. And so I don't have the issue making the trade-off. That's why I'm easier once we get there, not in the beginning.
Right. A similar thing or a related thing that I always think about, and this is something that we actually talked about or whatever. I do not think that if you are not at least engaged, that you should be moving or making major life decisions for a person until you're engaged, right? Because before the engagement, you don't have skin in the game yet, right? So I'm not going to move for somebody if we're not engaged.
I hear you. I hear you.
Let's talk about it.
I hear you. I understand why you said that logically.
Yeah.
For me, I'm trying to put myself in that scenario. Mm-hmm. For me, numerically speaking, right, percentage-wise, there may be some outliers here. But if I think about myself and I'm being honest, I would need more time with that person in proximity, unless they were one of those people that we talked about, like, hey, you just kind of know up front. Okay. It's like, don't mess it up. You already know where this person stands up front. if they weren't in that initial like bucket, I would need more time with them, like with them, and someone would need to move for us to see if we have.
So what you're saying is that you're not going to date long distance.
What I'm saying is I am more open to long distance than I ever been. Before I was very much
really
not. Before
long distance in a relationship.
Before I was like not doing it. Like, you live somewhere else, like nah, this is not gonna work. And so now I am open to it. Not the best at it because like it's just like yo, especially if I don't know that there's like a light at the end of the tunnel of when you can move. Mm-hmm. Like why am I investing in something that like already has a lot of odds stacked against it?
Yeah.
So before I was like not entertaining at all. Mm-hmm. Now I am willing to entertain, but I know the chances are few and far between. Maybe when I'm 40, hopefully I don't get to that point.
This man jumped years.
Yeah, maybe I'm 40. I'll be like, you know what, we catching flights, but you know, so this makes me think of another question. So obviously you're okay not living with someone before you propose. Would you, now that you think about it, would you want to live with someone before you?
Living with somebody is a big step.
Yeah. It can be. It can be.
Can be.
Maybe I'm weird. Let me not speak. For me, it wasn't, but for some people, it is.
To me, I think it's a big step personally. So for me, right? Actually, you know what? To be 100% honest, in 2022, you know I'm logical, right? Man, this inflation crazy, everything expensive or whatever. If you need to save money, whatever it takes to save money, go ahead and live together. Actually, that is my official stance, right?
You changed your mind?
No, I'm actually thinking about it because I actually brought this up to my wife at one point. Hey, I think that we should actually live together, right?
Yeah.
And she was actually opposed to it, right? The reason that I wanted us to live together is, surprise, surprise, money-saving purposes.
It's funny how men work.
Right. And she was actually opposed to it. I think it was because she wanted to make it more formal before we lived together or whatever. And honestly, here's my thing at the end of the day, is that I still think that not living together before you're married doesn't make any sense. Why? Because there's so many things that you can uncover from actually spending and living with somebody, right? It's just, for me, how does this person sleep?
You already know how they sleep.
But you don't know the whole extent.
I mean, you know how that person sleeps, man. If she's visiting you, you know how she sleeps. You don't need 4 days to know how she sleeps.
All right, how they clean.
Oh yeah.
What their bathroom looks like after a long period of time, like what their different mannerisms are in different situations and all that. You don't get that if you're not living with the person. So I thought it was always crazy to not live with somebody before you are married to them.
I recognize the pros and cons to both. I think if you had never lived with your person before, your first couple years of marriage is going to be a lot of transition and adjustment.
That sounds crazy.
I think if you did it.
We lived together when we were engaged.
Okay, your engagement period was not full of transition and adjustment.
So it took about a week and a half of adjustment. It was really quick.
Maybe y'all were on the anomalies.
I was scared to death, and my wife will tell you this as well. I was scared to death. I thought that I was probably going to call the engagement off or the wedding off or whatever, because I'm a very particular person in a lot of circumstances. I thought that she would irritate me too much and that I just wouldn't be able to take it. But
y'all compatible in that space. Yeah.
My wife is cool.
But my point is, like, if y'all worked out, right?
Yes. We're an outlier. That's the thing, man.
But you say that, but I think most things that work in love are outliers. When you think about percentages of how many people you date, the ones that work are the outliers.
Really?
Yeah, bro, look at it.
Though?
Happy relationships.
Are they really?
Think about how many not happy relationships and single people, and how many attempts. Think about for every attempt that tries, how many end up. Like, all of it's outliers.
I guess.
But my point is, the first couple years is a big transition. If you do it beforehand and you survive, getting married that first year is going to be a lot smoother because you've already gone through a lot of those bumps. Mm-hmm. I've done it with a partner before that actually formerly lived with me, and one that I had a key to my place and was there often. I don't know if you have to formally live with the person, but I do think it's important to have be on the level where that person has access to your space and is spending a lot of time at one place or the other, or you've done it in both places actually.
Okay.
Because to me, you do learn a lot. And whether they live there, where there's full ownership or not, you learn how they take care of space, right?
Yep.
How they, whether it's they're visiting or that's theirs, And some women are not the cleanest of the,
Facts.
And so it's a whole level
Facts.
of filth that you
Facts.
you didn't know was
You'd
part
be
of the process.
surprised.
You're like, damn, the bathroom sink looks like this, or the mirror is like, yo, this is a whole
Hey, ladies, some of y'all dirty as hell.
And so it's just like it's an adjustment, right? Or how they live, how they clean. All these things are big adjustments. And so I don't know that you have to like formally move in, but I do think spending significant consecutive days with each other on both sides of it is important to see how that person lives. Like you, when I made the decision to move in with my ex, or my ex to move in with me, that person was already at my place a lot. And so for me, it was a financial decision because I was like, at that time, we were future planning.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we're trying to save money. We're trying to do all these things. You're here 90% of the time. You literally just go back to get clothes. Why? Like, you come back when I'm not even home. Why, like, spend money on a separate place to do more of the same?
Do you think that helped?
I think it uncovered what it needed to uncover. We're not together, so.
So the end justifies the means.
I mean, we say did it help because we put like, and I think it's important to talk about in dating. We put like there has to be an end, like the end goal has to be like in
Gotcha.
Success is determined by it went to the next level of marriage, right? Mm-hmm. To me, you can still have a successful relationship. Well, let me say not successful. You can still have a positive relationship experience that didn't work out in the way that you intended the end goal to work out. Mm-hmm. Like it's like business school. You can get a no for an internship to learn that this is not for you, and then you're better positioned full time. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that it was a waste, right? Mm-hmm. I think we need to have more positive relationship experiences that don't end in drama, infidelity, and all these things, right?
Now, without the drama and the infidelity and all that kind of stuff, my brother, let me ask you, with this internship, are you consulting on that internship after you left?
What is it? No, when it ended, it ended. In this situation with the with the ex that moved in, there was no consultations afterwards.
Okay, fair enough.
I've been in other positive relationships that there's still consultation afterwards, but that one that lived with me, when it ended, it ended.
I just had to ask.
No, it ended, it ended. But I think it's important to like see those things, right? And it's important to have like positive relationships. You can say, hey, I learned these things about myself. I learned, more about what I want, what I need, what works for me. Take that to the next relationship and not look at that relationship that you experienced as like, this was a waste. I think we're so quick to cancel, say, it was a waste of my time.
True.
And it's like, if you learn some things, if you gain additional knowledge about yourself that you wouldn't have gained without that experience, then it was a positive. I mean, hopefully there wasn't like, any kind of drama and stuff, but overall, hopefully it was a positive experience, even though it didn't end the way you wanted it to end, right?
It's just like a job, right?
Yeah.
You can switch jobs and you just find out, they end, but you
I tend to think a lot of relationships can be, a lot of employment situations can be proxy for relationships. And 100%. How you, and rationale for why people do what they do, even though it's not the same because there's feelings involved in a relationship versus a job. Like when people say, hey, I don't understand why people cheat. I don't understand why people cheat. I don't condone cheating at all. So I'm going to put that out there.
But if you put it in the
But I understand why people cheat. It's like, why would you leave something
right
to have nothing? Most people, you wouldn't quit your job.
Exactly. It's economics.
without having another job. You're going to interview several people. You're going to figure out the one you work. You're going to go accept a job, and then you'll say, hey, I don't want this no more.
Exactly.
And that's why a lot of people cheat. They're not happy. They start engaging in behavior that's not conducive or appropriate for the relationship. And then when they find something that works for them, then they leave. Mm-hmm. And it's selfish. It's not fair, but logically, I understand why people do it. not condoning it. And when you could put a lot of things into like have an employment scenario as a proxy, it's like, well, I get the psyche. You know, people didn't care about your feelings that much.
Another similar analogy or whatever is, for example, right now I've been talking to some friends about, when you're leaving a job, are you going towards something greater, or are you running away from your current situation, right? Because those are two different things.
It's different, and you can think about a relationship the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
And so think about sometimes when you talked about range, right? Like shooting within your range.
Yep.
I'm not saying this is the best way to make a basket, but sometimes someone may be running away from something to say, hey, this looked safe. This looked positive.
Right.
And so they went for it because they were running away, not necessarily saying, I know I can do better than this, right?
That's not you're not operating from a position of power.
Yeah.
You're operating from scarcity,
fear,
or just
whatever
fear,
it might be.
or whatever. Yeah, 100%.
So it could go either way. So when you think about why you see certain people with each other, you don't know where they were coming from to get to that.
Ooh.
But if that guy wasn't shooting half court shots, he wouldn't have made it.
Ooh.
Hence why you keep shooting what you like, right?
Very interesting.
But there are consequences to that, where that person is in their life, what baggage you have to navigate, and all those kind of things.
Basically, what you're saying, if you ugly, there's a chance out there you might bag one.
No, that's not what I said. That is not what I said, but it's possible. What they say, anything's possible.
Anything is possible.
I was saying if you're like a 9 or a 10,
yeah,
you might be more receptive to some things that you weren't, because you're running away from something that was very unhealthy for you. And so
what I heard is that if you ugly, you might score some, here and there.
There's multiple ways to see a coin, multiple sides of the same coin. But on your relationship, we'll get back to your wife. What would you say have been some of when you think about the 4 years you guys have had, some of the most meaningful experiences and memories you've had in that relationship so far?
Oh man, obviously when we met at a Nigerian convention, so that was pretty special there. You were there when we met, so just how that all went down was really awesome. It's kind of fairy tale or whatever. I love telling that story. Other than that, I think when we went to the Margarita Ball in Dallas, I think the first year of us dating, that was when I first told her that I loved her. So that was a good memory there. She looked beautiful, ball gown dress, we were very drunk that night too, but it was all good. Like that was definitely a memorable night. Other really memorable time periods, when we went to Mexico for my birthday, then went to Mexico for her birthday.
I was at her birthday
and
party.
You were at her birthday. That was an awesome,
that was a great trip.
Awesome, great trip there. So that was great to see. I have a really interesting story from that that talks about you should focus on your relationship versus other people's relationships, but we can get into that one. Obviously, proposing. I think you were there for when maybe.
No, I don't think I was there when you proposed. So, I got a few questions I want to ask, and so I hope I don't forget. So if I forget, remind me. I want to ask about, since we talked about positives, the bumps in the roads too. But I do want to know two things. One, how much stress, anxiety, work effort went into proposing to her? Because I think sometimes women are like, well, why don't you propose? And like to men, I don't think it's like, oh, I just got to ask her a question. There's a lot of stuff that go into it before you actually do it. So how much went into that on your end?
I wouldn't exactly term it as stress or anxiety, but it's definitely planning, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my wife, she has certain standards, right? So I can't just propose to her. Like I saw a dude, he popped his proposal in the TSA line at the airport or something like that. No, I can't do that, right? So
unless they met there, but that's trash.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know the background, but that was kind of crazy to see in a picture. But I mean, with her, what I was thinking to do, I was trying to figure out how to make this a surprise. It was a lot of planning on my part because we had already gone to take a look at rings. So that's the first step, right? Like, all right, I think that we should get married. let's take a look at some rings. The reason why I didn't just pick a ring myself with and try to make it a surprise or whatever, I don't want to get you something that you don't want.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I want.
She don't want to get something she don't want.
Exactly, 100%. So I just didn't want to chance that. So all right, let's bring you to the ring shop or whatever, just so you can think that it's coming or whatever. And I'm not just shooting in the dark. So she actually picked her ring out. So cool, all fair and good. So at this point, she knows that something is coming.
Yeah.
She just doesn't know when. So now I have to get creative to figure out how to actually do it. So what we did was one of her friends was having a birthday party, or it was her birthday was coming up, right?
Yep.
So I called her and I said, yo, I know you got a birthday coming up. Can I piggyback off of the birthday
Or the proposal.
to propose, right? So she was like, I wasn't even planning on anything, but let's go ahead and do it, right? So we went to, she had this thing at a winery or whatever, and she set it up such that this is going to be a dress-up event. So my
She would
wife
be ready,
would be dressed up.
How long did everything
Bruh.
take, planning wise? Like you would say, was it a couple months? Was it?
It wasn't a couple months. It was just a few weeks to kind of put that together because I had to call the place, book the place, coordinate with the friend, all that kind of good stuff.
No, I'm saying like even before you knew like you were gonna do it with the friend. So
that was months though.
When you think about, hey, I know I want to propose to like the time that we building the plan. How long did that take? Because I think women think it's just like boom, boom.
No. So we probably went to look at rings that summer, maybe June, July, some time frame, and I proposed in August, September. So it wasn't. It was like months. 2 months. It was like 2 months
from when you knew you wanted to propose. So
well, actually, I knew
when you knew you wanted to ask her.
It was months before that, right? Yeah. It was months.
So like, when did you know you wanted to propose to her?
Well, I knew I needed to propose when I moved to Atlanta, and I was trying to figure out how to get her to come to Atlanta too.
So like before she comes.
Yeah, I moved to Atlanta.
Is that why your philosophy is what it is? She's like, she ain't coming, so I gotta.
She ain't coming. So I moved to Atlanta in January, February of 2017.
So at that point, let's say February, you knew like this is a person you want to propose to.
Yeah.
But you didn't do it until you said September.
I want to say it was August.
August. So that's like. What, 6 months?
Yeah,
6 months
like that, yeah.
Between when you knew and when it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we went to Miami and everything because, I mean, that's where I grew up. So I brought her to meet my family.
Is that the first time she met them?
Yeah.
In August?
Yeah. Okay. Not in August, but it was in that summer because I was actually getting serious with it. I called her.
So you were taking the steps, right?
And her mom and all of that because we're not.
Was she aware, or on her end? Do you think it was just more like we're taking steps in the right direction, not like proposals?
It was taking steps in the right direction, but she didn't know when this. was
so she wasn't like, "Oh, we meeting the folks because I know a proposal's coming." Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, well, that makes sense. And then you said something that made me think earlier when you said you came down from Margarita Ball. Mm-hmm. So. If I'm being logical here.
Yeah.
So you was in these streets, right? You was living the life. You're in Chicago, freshly minted MBA, still trying to, you had let me type in Chicago and see who shows up. What was the transition like for you? So you guys meet, right? And you said within 2 months you were together. Yeah. So was it like 2 months? I done deleted all the Chicago numbers. What did that transition look like for you?
So we met at this convention in the summer in August or whatever, and then during that time period, like the next weekend after we met, I flew to Dallas to go see her.
So you just booked a flight because that's 1 week out, bro. That's expensive.
I know. So well, it's expensive now. I used my points back then. But
see that now we get to the heart of the matter. Use your points.
I'm gonna actually be a little bit honest too. You know what I'm saying? So I was actually gonna go see a girl I actually did see a girl in New Orleans or whatever earlier that week, and then I just.
Use my points
to go from New Orleans
close.
to Dallas.
Since we close, we can go do
to New Orleans to Dallas to go see her.
Yeah.
And that was just what it was because I had already had that.
Yeah, you already had that.
I already had that plan that was already on my agenda.
You didn't know who you was going. You wasn't planning
exactly.
To meet
that
the
was not
person
even part of it. But then I was like, you know what? I really like my wife.
Your wife and the girl
I met at the time. So let me go ahead and beeline, make this audible.
New Orleans must not have been a great trip.
It was alright. She kind of annoyed me, to be honest. Right?
That's important to see, though.
Yeah,
and to realize.
The thing is, as you get older, you figure out like what you like and what you don't like. Especially, you figure out what you don't like. Yeah. And I figured out what I don't like that weekend. Sorry if you're listening to this particular podcast, but there's some things that I didn't like on that trip. So.
No, but I highlight that because I think sometimes, and I've been found guilty of this, I think the goal should always, at least for me as a man, to like make sure you're providing positive experiences for the person you're engaging with, right? And so sometimes that could lead a woman to believing she's the only one that's receiving positive experiences, and so I just highlight to say that like I think it's rare that you meet someone and they don't have anything else going on or baggage with someone else. And sometimes like there's some disappointment or betrayal when they find out like, oh, I thought I was the only one. And it's like, we just met like a few weeks ago. Like life, I didn't plan for us to match on the apps when it, or when it matched or to meet you at this event. It just kind of happened. So you have it. We don't want to say it explicitly, but we're all competing.
Exactly. 100%.
You're all competing against people you know about and don't know about.
It's a free market. I had to cut the women off, you know what I'm saying, when I got out there. So, I mean, when I met her, we started dating, and then when I knew that I wanted this to be serious. So within
after the trip to Dallas, like, was it just like, hey, you had to send a text to everyone, you deleted them? What did that process look like?
It was a process of, well, the ones that aren't that serious or whatever,
you just ghost.
You just ghost the ones that aren't that serious.
I'm not a believer in ghosting, but I get it.
I mean, there's prioritization.
No, I hear you.
Like I'm a product manager.
It didn't work. It was on the backlog list.
Yeah, it was on the backlog.
It wasn't worth it,
and that one wasn't worth it. Now there was one that I had to like. There was two. There was two that I had to like put out there and say, you know what? I met somebody, right?
You have to have the conversation with them.
Yeah, they actually had
to blow up your spot later.
Yeah, exactly. And it was all good, So it was for the ones that deserve the conversation. Go ahead and deserve that conversation. For the ones that you don't engage with like that, leave them on red.
I don't even have read receipts, so I got it. Another question before I go to the bumps in the road: are you friends or cool with any of your exes?
I'm cool with a lot of them, actually, yeah.
And how does that, like, what does that dynamic look like? Like, does your wife know about them, and what does that dynamic look like?
Man, everybody knows I'm married. You see all these posts with the baby and all that?
No, some people don't care, bro. Like,
nah, ain't nobody. First of all, everybody told me that when you get a ring on your finger, all the ladies
and you like it hasn't happened.
Bruh, that has not happened. Maybe it's the pandemic or whatever. But,
I haven't seen no.
Bro, I ain't pulling nothing out here. Everybody knows this is a married man with a kid and a wife that might just sue you or beat you up or something. So, ain't nobody trying to holler at me over here.
No, I'm just saying. The reason why I asked because you see different trains of thoughts with that. Like, I don't want my man having anybody that he's been with, or even. Sometimes even female friends, but like even further than that, anybody he's been with, I don't want them. So I think when there are situations where someone is friends with their ex and the significant other is either secure in the relationship to not be an issue, I think it's always good to talk about. Like, how does that work? How did you create space for that? How does that dynamic continue?
I mean, to be honest, we're both not really jealous people or whatever. We always know where each other is at all times too as well. So it's not even really a question, right?
Yeah, I mean, neither one of you guys have given each other reason to believe like something's happening.
It's not even a question. Like, I'm always in the house, and then if I'm not in the house, I'm chilling with my homeboys or whatever, and her the same thing. Like,
there's a level of trust.
Right now, we're at my crib,
and
she's out
in these streets. She outside. She's outside.
She could be outside. I don't know.
It's almost 11 p.m. and she outside on a weekday.
I don't know if she's at a play, but to be honest,
you trust her.
I trust her, and she's a pregnant lady who.
Well, she's also pregnant, so that doesn't help unless someone has some weird fetish. But she is pregnant.
Right.
But I'm gonna get to the bumps. I promise.
Yeah.
But you saying that, I think a lot of times when I hear people, especially like some of these more rudimentary type issues that come up, to me it all stems from trust. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, when we talk about head of the household and someone making decisions, it's like, do you not trust this person and how they make decisions or how they would make decisions for you?
Yep.
Do you not trust this person on how they move if you weren't around? And so how would you say you guys have worked on strengthening the trust in the relationship or not losing it per se, so that like those are things that you guys don't even have a second thought about?
I think it just comes naturally from say and do. So if you say something and you're committed to something, you follow up with it at the end of the day, right? You have enough of those, you see a consistent pattern from a person, right? I think honestly that's where a lot of that comes from. And I don't think that I have any silver bullet to this or anything like that. But I think the relationship that my wife and I have is just one where, hey, we both put a lot into this relationship.
Yep.
We both put a lot of investment in. And if you need some time and space to go do your thing, go do your thing. Them. We both work from home right now. Like we look
Sometimes
at each other.
Sometimes we need some space.
We literally look
tired
at each
of looking
other.
At you beautiful, but I'm tired of looking at
all
you
all day, right? So
I get it.
Of course, now that we're in Dallas and all of our friends are here, please go. Because I can be at home
friends.
Chilling.
You gotta make some friends. Well, you my friend, so
we're friends. We got there's mad people here that I know in Dallas and all of that.
So as you say that, I'm thinking about random questions that I haven't thought to ask before. We're gonna do the quick fire before. So are you a person that is I trust people till it's broken, or you have to earn trust type of person?
I trust people till it's broken.
What about your wife?
I think she's the same.
I'm the opposite. I don't understand y'all. Like to me, I just think most people are full of shit. And so to me, I need to see it and it needs to build up to establish it. Like, do I trust certain people to come to my house and not break nothing or but like when it comes to me and in my relationship and my feelings and to do for me, like I have to see evidence and say and do before I'm like, okay, I trust you versus just risking it on to me, it's a shot in the dark. With every person, I believe you're gonna do what you say. It's like, nah. I think,
well,
if you're being logical, the numbers are most people are not gonna.
I 100% agree with you, right? So I think I might recall some of what I said, right? Because in my head, a lot of my thought process, a lot of my actions actually say that I don't put a lot of investment in people until I feel like I can trust them to that extent. So a lot of times, to be honest, when I get in relationships, I'm not putting my heart into that super early. We're in a relationship or whatever, but I can be out.
But that's my point about the obligation piece and the obligation piece and the me moving slow pieces because. I can be in something and out of me saying this is how our relationship, whether official or not, this is the dynamic that we have. I know that I have a responsibility to show up in this way, whether I'm there emotionally or not. That makes sense. It is just how we're trained, so to speak.
Yep.
To say, hey, I said I'm going to be this kind of person to you, or I know I want to be this kind of person. So out of obligation, I'm going to show up in this manner, whether my feelings are there yet or not. I'm going to show up that kind of way. So it is an obligation. It might not even be to the person. It's just to what standard you hold yourself to.
Yep. Well, I would say that it depends on what level of engagement you have with this person and where you put them in your priority list.
Sure.
Now, we're, mid-30s, right? So we shouldn't be playing these games anymore. But if we were younger, who cares? Be out on the street, break promises.
No, I don't subscribe to that. We're trying to have sophisticated conversations. he's saying that, and it didn't work for him until he's changed his mind. So, no, I'm gonna say I don't subscribe to it because I feel like honesty is important. I don't believe in ghosting people. I think people are not used to having tough and avoid tough conversations.
That's true. I agree with that.
And I feel like it is like I give you 2 examples. I met a girl who was cool, and everything was pretty good for the most part, but she wasn't in the bucket of like, that instant, like I knew, but there were some things around the last name being changed, and there were some things around how we thought about disciplining our kids that we weren't aligned on. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about it. So we, and I told her from jump, I moved slow, right? And so we were like month 4, just spending. I don't call it dating. I hate the word dating because it means so much.
Yeah,
it's so convoluted in what it may mean to someone. I just say we were investing time to see where this could go, and for me, she was a priority, investing time to see where it could go. And so I knew that like we were getting to that point where like I got to make I've spent enough time trying to figure it out.
Right.
And in some of those cases, not having an answer is your answer, you know. But when I thought about it deeper, I was like, yo, I'm not moving on. No, so I thought about it deeper and we talked about it. And, this is where that what are we doing conversation comes. And I hate that conversation. I think it's like a very impractical conversation to have for realistic results. Because whoever's asking the question, what are we doing, has spent time thinking about that. Whoever gets the question is now put on the spot to answer the question. And it's a very terminal type of question in the sense of typically the person is looking to get an answer to make a move. And so because we're getting to that point, I was like, yo, I think we need to talk about, and I would suggest people framing conversations in this way versus what are we doing? I said we should talk about what's going well, what are things that are giving us pause, and what do we think are deal breakers for us.
You're such a consultant,
I am.
bro.
I said let's talk about it in those ways. And it doesn't need to be, we got to make a decision off of it, but it's important to have awareness of what I think is going well versus what you think is going well. It's important enough to know, like, hey, what I think is giving her. If I knew some things were giving her pause, like, oh, maybe I need to address this versus we just keep doing it, right? And to see if our deal breakers are aligned, they could be very different. Certain things that I wasn't even considering that I'm aware about. So I think that's a great way to frame how to have a proactive conversation about moving your relationship forward or not. So I was like, hey, just think about it. And then we'll come back and talk about it. So now we both have time to really think about it. So a few weeks later, we talked about it. And there were some things that she brought up that I didn't think about as potential concerns. I don't know what it was on her end. Ultimately, the last name was still like a thing. And certain dynamics were still like a thing. It would have been easy for me to just like, hey, text her after I like marinated on the conversation and be like, yo, this is not going to work. But to me, it was the respectful thing to have an in-person conversation. I don't know if that matters to people these days, but I think like for me, maybe I'm old school, like having the
How long had you been talking to her?
Like 4 months.
Oh yeah, you have to have that conversation in person.
It wasn't like, oh, yo, like ghost this person or send them a text like it's not working. So I literally went to that person and I didn't want to because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Went to that person's house. We talked about it. And it was what it was. And then I left. But that was like, I think we try to avoid things like that. And then we leave people with these like negative situations because we don't want to handle things like adults.
People are avoiding.
Yeah. Another, and if you try, like on the flip side, like you're not going to ghost me easily. I met a young lady and we were talking and I was warned like, yo, she's not a great texter. And I text, she's not a great like communicator. Even with her friends, she doesn't. So that helped me. So I'm reaching out, and every now and then I get a response. And after a while, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna respond to see this person hits me up. Didn't hit me up. So I hit that person up, and I was like, yo, I recognize life. Like people got things going on in life, so I never want to make assumptions, but I just want to see like where your head's at in the sense of is this still something you want to pursue? And this was a long distance thing. It would have been long distance. And she was like, I got a lot going on in life. And I'm trying to figure out like where I need to accelerate and push pause. So right now I can't do it. Right. And I was like, cool. Like, I don't want to keep blowing you up and you dealing with this. Right. But we're afraid to get the no's sometimes that we don't. And then it causes not trauma, but it leaves these marks and baggage for us that we don't want to have these tough conversations. And so I say that in a way to like set the table for like, what are some of the tough conversations you've had to have in your relationship, whether to navigate bumps that you guys have to deal with or tough things that you guys needed to overcome?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind was just in general, our interaction as far as, I don't know if the term is just her correcting me or her nagging me or whatever, but there was a certain period where I just really felt like I couldn't do anything as a man myself and make decisions as a man without her questioning everything that I do.
This is why she wasn't touching you and no acts of service. This is why y'all were long distance.
This was not when we were long distance, but it's still related to that as well too, because on the long distance side, there was a lot of, no, I think you should do it like this, and oh, this is what my demand is, and all of that. And there was a lot of that when I'm not getting a lot of benefit of it. This was actually when we were engaged. If we fast forward to, we were attending church and there was a Father's Day sermon, and this was, to me, I thought it was a cool sermon personally, where the pastor's wife just talked about how a lot of men in today's age or whatever are seen as idiots and incompetent or whatever, because if you remember back in the day, in those 80s and 90s sitcoms, if you think about the dad roles, it was always like a bumbling, like stupid
Simpsons, Married with Children.
Married with Children. Yeah. What's that? Tim the Two-Man Taylor, was that? Home Improvement. All of that, right? It's always the dad doing something stupid or, something like that, right? And that was really a trope of, the stupid husband and whatever, and the wife has to put it together and all of that. So she was talking about that, and she was talking about how women need to just take a step back and let a man be a man and let them figure it out and not nag them about everything and just correct them left and right and just let them be them, because that's not helping the relationship, right? Like, that's just not positive for the relationship. So that whole sermon really spoke to me, because I felt like that's what's been happening in our relationship for months to maybe as the whole time that we've been interacting, just in general, especially
she just all up in your shit, just like
all like every my wife. I mean, to this day, she regrettably admitted, but I think she's come to terms with it. She's a super backseat driver. Like, it's crazy. Oh my god!
Like, do you want to drive?
I literally say that to her.
You're like, yeah, you want to drive?
Do you want to drive?
Shut it up, please.
Or
respectfully,
do you want to do this? She knows when I ask that question.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to do it? She's like, she chills out now, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is that we have different communication styles, right? I really think internally before something comes out of my mouth. I actually have a filter before I say something. She thinks out loud. So with everything on her side, as soon as something happens, she's gonna, question, my decision, or why are you doing this like this, or or I think that you should do this and all of that, right? As a man, who has, to be honest, she came around the scene when I was 28. I was decently successful.
I had my shit together.
Exactly. I was decently successful before we met. So now, all of a sudden, now that I have a significant other or whatever, I'm just incompetent now, right? I haven't been able to. How did I even survive before I met you, in the first place, right? That's like what's going through my head with her questioning everything. And when I say everything, man, it was bad. Everything that I do, right? So it made me feel like, I can't make a decision. She feels like I'm incompetent. She's always checking me on everything. And, me, I'm doing pretty decently in life. Who gonna check me? Who are you to check me? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm thinking in my head. So when that sermon came up, I'm like, yo, this is actually speaking to me. So after that sermon, I was like, you know what? I think that we should have a talk. And I went through the whole, hey, this actually really appealed a lot to me. There's a lot of times that you're all up in my business And personally, I try my best to, hey, if you doing your thing, I'm going to let you do your thing. Make your whatever, if it's mistakes, successes, or whatever, you got to live your life experiences. But on the flip side, it's her personality. She going to be all up in my hula hoop. You know what I'm saying? She's space. All in my hula hoop in my decision making or whatever, right? So
how'd you guys navigate that?
So we had to talk, and she did not take it well. She actually, during the sermon, she tuned the whole sermon out because she just did not ascribe to it.
She's like, I don't like this guest pastor.
Exactly. And then when I brought it up, pastor. She told me that she felt like I was covering her light or turning out her spirit or something like that, and all of that. She did not take it very well with me just bringing that up. I was like, all right, well, I mean, that's just somewhere where we differ. So there was actually subsequent conversations to that, and I think it took her a while to come around to it, but she actually realized that when she does these types of things, it makes me feel like I think that she thinks I'm incompetent, right?
Did you say those words to her?
Yeah, so through, what is it called? Through marriage counseling, we learn this communication style, right? That it's not, you do this or you do this and all that. The way that you should communicate is, when you do this action, it makes me feel like this, right? And it has these ramifications. Yep. Yeah. And that, to be honest, every time anybody brings relationship problems to me, I say, hey, do you guys talk like this? I guarantee you it'll help, right? So we started having those conversations.
And then you recall what they said, affirm that you heard them.
Exactly.
What I heard you say is bingo. X, Y, Z. Did I get it right?
Yes, and exactly.
So you can validate that they were heard.
Yep.
And then you proceed.
Yep, that's exactly it, right? So coaching people through that, and, we actually went through that and everything. She got it. I got it. We understand, and we just, honestly, what you can pinpoint it as is a difference in communication style, right? Because she's just instantaneous, off the top of her head. She makes her thoughts known and everything. I'm more of an internal thinker, so her off the top of her head is imposing on my internal thinking.
Yeah.
So that's where the breakdown is, right? So now, with that adjustment, now that we singled that out, she does very, very well with, letting me have my time to think in retrospect. So I think it's all been good now. It's definitely been positive. So I'm happy with it. There are still times she's still a backseat driver.
But you're still with her, though.
I'm still with her, though.
And that's all that matters. What also matters is that I'm cognizant of your time. And so I want to end it right here. I want to thank you for your time. You're keeping it real, all the way real, hella raw. I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty, man, and just giving us a glimpse into your experiences and your marriage. For those that are enjoying the podcast, enjoying season 3, make sure you tell a friend. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your platform of choice. Make sure you follow on Instagram at ThinkLoveWife. Check out our sponsor, Nello Effect, at www.nelloeffect.com. Show some love to them. I can't wait for the next episode to come out. I'm going to wrap this conversation up with Nkem. And we're going to talk about a few things from why it was so important for him to marry someone within the same culture, navigating the Nigerian culture and implications of our upbringing in our relationships, and then also the difference between being the rock and being a source of strength. Hey, if you liked what you heard, if you got questions, you want to provide some feedback, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, you know what it is. I hope the conversation, say it with me, y'all, keeps going.